College football is here, and now I have a twist just for you. Hi, this is Crispy Maps here, with a new type of video for you guys, College Football Imperialism. Now I know what you're thinking, I'm going to sim several hundred games on NCAA 25? No, that's not really my thing, and I don't have a next-gen console, or the game in general. Take your pick on which reason I choose. What I'm thinking about is the real thing. Because why play 100 games on my Xbox when I can just look at this past weekend's results? So, voila, this is my Imperialism map. Now this is before week 0, so nothing has happened just yet. But just wait, because you're about to see this entire thing change before your very eyes. But let me just give you a schedule. That way the chaos in this video can be just a little bit more understandable. So I'm going to use the base map to explain what I did in greater depth before moving on to week 0 to show solid examples of how games will work on this map, before showing what this map looks like past week 1. Now without further ado, let's get started. So in this map, I've carved up the good old US of A into 134 territories. Each territory is designated towards each FBS football team based off of their geographical location. However, there won't be 134 teams forever, as every single week these teams will fight for their land, because when Team 1 beats Team 2, Team 1 will take Team 2's land, given that both Teams 1 and 2 are in the FBS, and again, this is based on the latest results from the previous weekend. Now why did I give each team the land that they have? Well, there are a couple of factors that led to the initial size of each territory. First, it's based on how many other schools are in that state. I tried to carve up each state based on the number of colleges in that state. So for example, in Wisconsin, the only FBS team here is the University of Wisconsin. So Wisconsin takes that entire state. Now moving on to the east towards Michigan, this state is split 5 different ways into their 5 FBS schools. The University of Michigan, Michigan State, Central Michigan, Eastern Michigan, and Western Michigan. Now, that leads us to a second factor, the size of the school. I tried to give the larger schools greater amounts of territory. That's why Michigan and Michigan State have the majority of the land in that state. However, this rule isn't that consistent, as the third factor is isolation. The best area to explain this is Western Texas, where UTEP has a considerable amount of territory, mainly because they're just so far away from the other neighbors they have, despite being in a state with a dozen other teams. One last thing about territory is that I give the states without an FBS team to whichever team was the closest. For example, North Dakota is going to Minnesota. Now, one major thing about this map is no FCS teams. Even if Idaho did manage to somehow upset Oregon, nothing would change. That would just make things complicated. Now, there is some unique cases here, sometimes, and that is when there is more than one FBS school in a single county, which is the smallest possible unit on this map. And the simple answer is that the bigger school gets the county and the smaller school gets a small amount of land nearby. Now, it's finally time for our week 0 games. In 3, 2, 1, go. Week 0 gives us 4 different types of outcomes for this map. First, you have Georgia Tech beating Florida State, and since this is an FBS team beating another FBS team, Georgia Tech simply takes Florida State's land. All of it. The only way for them to get back on is for them to beat somebody else with land. So if Florida State beats Boston College next week, then they would take their land. Oh, sorry about that. Our next case is SMU beating Nevada. So here, SMU just now has this exclave all the way in Nevada. Pretty cool, right? And yeah, that's really it with this one. Next is Hawaii, who beat an FCS team, and because they beat an FCS team, nothing happens. And it's the same with New Mexico, but this time they get a sad face because they lost. And now that's it with week 0. This allows us to go and move on to week 1. Now, this map has just changed drastically. So let's start with the upset that for me happened last night, where Boston College beat Florida State. Now because Florida State already lost their land, Boston College gets nothing. They just get to keep their land. And can we enjoy the parts of New England belonging to Eastern Michigan? Meanwhile, Maryland now owns Connecticut and Rhode Island. Let's move down to Georgia. And you can see that Georgia and Georgia Tech just expanded their territories, which was well deserved after Georgia blew Clemson out, while UTSA, Boise State, and Coastal Carolina also made some nice grabs too. Going down to Florida, well, they just lost most of their teams. Let's take a second to congratulate Vanderbilt on their win by doubling their territory. And also, Alabama is now in Kentucky. Moving up to the Mid-Atlantic, you have a few changes. Penn State and West Virginia, Syracuse and Ohio, Oklahoma and Philadelphia, and South Carolina and Norfolk. Nothing drastic really happened near the Great Lakes, but you can see a giant change up in the Great Plains as North Carolina now owns Minnesota and North Dakota. It's amazing to see the impact of a missed field goal. Back in the Deep South, you're going to see strange names, as USC in North Texas, and wait, is that Nevada back from the dead? That's right. Nevada is our first team back from the dead, as after their loss to SMU, they just beat Troy, getting all of their territory. Meanwhile, in Texas, Sam Houston beat Rice to expand their land. Notre Dame is now showing up in Texas after their victory. Las Vegas now has Galveston, and over in the west, you could see the great expanse of Nebraska, where there's still nothing. And you can also grab a UCLA cameo in Hawaii, although that was one really ugly win. Now we finish off in the West, the final frontier, as both Arizona teams made giant grabs, although New Mexico kept it close for a minute. Texas steamrolled Colorado State for their little sliver. Stanford and Fresno State both lost to TCU and Michigan respectively, although Michigan gave their fans a little heart attack. I know, I was one of them in row 34 of the student section. But thankfully Oregon had a much uglier win that week, overshadowing Michigan's. But seriously, I'm not excited for this Sunday. But that's it after week 1. This is what imperialism looks like. As the weeks go by, there will be fewer games to talk about, and I'll go in depth with those. But let me know what you think about this. Any ideas for future weeks? And be sure to subscribe as, hey, you've made it this far. So thank you and have a great day.